Good morning. My name is Megan Parrish, and I will be discussing discrete trial training and the effectiveness it can have in the classroom. Oftentimes, individuals that are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder have a hard time acquiring the skills needed to succeed in their education. Discrete trial training is just one research-based method in which is used with these students. So what is discrete trial training? Discrete trial training is a method that is rapid paced, and it's set apart from other methods because it is so fast paced, and it's intense, and it's used for a very short period of time. These students that require this are often distracted easily, and they require very short one-step directions. Discrete trial training should take place in a structured environment, and it can be implemented by many people. It can be implemented by parents, paraprofessionals, teachers, and even peers. One study I looked at preschool students in which they were given discrete trial training. It took place over 2 years, and in the first year, there was the time that the kids were spent in discrete trial training was 10 to 15 minute sessions. These 10 to 15 minute sessions took place over 3 times a day, and then the second year they were done over 30 to 45 minute sessions, and they were only done once a day. However, there was a difference in these two studies. The first study showed that the skill acquisition was not as high when it was done for short periods of time throughout the day. However, the second one showed that the acquisition of skills was higher, although both of them had skill acquisition. Now, what does this tell us about discrete trial training? Discrete trial training is something that takes a lot of work and a lot of training to know how to do it properly. So oftentimes in schools, discrete trial training is implemented, but it's not implemented effectively. We want to look at how we can implement this effectively and make it work for each student. There have been different methods used to train people and individuals. Why is it important to make sure that these individuals are trained properly and effective? It is important to train these people because we want it to be a consistent method which is used across different settings. Consistency is often the key with students with disabilities. And when there's inconsistencies, we often see problem behaviors. They just get disruptive, they bother other students, or they just cannot learn. Therefore, consistency is important. So, why do we use discrete trial training, and why do we break these skills down into simple tasks? First is, they're easy to obtain and acquire these skills when they are repetitive, and these kids have many times to practice them. And eventually we want to lead this over to generalization, and where they can generalize it across different settings in their life, whether it be at home, school, out in social situations, and so on. There have been some studies that have shown that discrete trial training has worked in different methods of rapidness. So I mentioned to you earlier that it needs to be rapid. It needs to happen fast. I mean, real fast. So there was a study done where they used 1 second intervals, 5 second intervals, and 10 second intervals to ask for the response of questions or commands. And the research showed that the faster the questions were asked and the less time between each question, the better the results. And it helped bring down the disruptive behavior. Now, how do you get these results? You get these results by offering reinforcements or reinforcers to these students. It's important that these students' reinforcers or rewards are something that they enjoy, something that they like. Now, does choice play a part in this? Yes, choice plays a part in this. Some students need to be able to choose what they want to work for. Other students do not need to be able to choose, and the teacher, the paraprofessional, whoever who is working with the student can often pick something that the student likes, and the student doesn't have to have a choice in that matter. This is a very data-driven method, and therefore we have to have a consistent data system. A consistent data system is something that every person who is implementing this method must use. And so it has to have, whether it be plus or minus signs or the correct markings for prompting that you may use with a student. It has to be consistent along each level. This is important because these kids have to have that consistency. If they don't have the consistency, therefore they cannot obtain those skills easily. They become frustrated. You become frustrated as an educator, and behaviors happen. And when behaviors happen, the whole system breaks down. So it only works if everybody's on the same page. When everybody is trained adequately and effectively, and discrete trial training can be implemented effectively. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out process. Some of the trainings can be short, and some of them can be even longer. I looked at several different studies which talked about different ways that individuals were trained to implement discrete trial training. One of the ones I looked at was using web-based modeling. And this is where they used a module that was developed, and paraprofessionals watched the module and then implemented the discrete trial training. This was somewhat effective, but not effective enough that the paraprofessionals could do this with fidelity. They needed to have a little bit more support. One method that was discovered that worked really well was teacher coaching. So when teachers who were trained effectively in discrete trial training were able to coach paraprofessionals and give them that attention and those suggestions and stuff that would help them throughout the implementation of it, these paraprofessionals, it went from 50% effective, some of them all the way up to 100% effective in the way it was implemented. Another study in which I found very fascinating was they used peers, students who were in elementary school, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and they worked with younger students, preschool and kindergarten age, in which these peers were taught the methods of discrete trial training, and they were also given paraprofessional or teacher help and coaching to help these students learn how to implement this. The research showed that this was also effective when they had the extra coaching and the extra time to work with these kids and teach them how to make this work. It was done over a very consistent amount of time, and each student was able to spend a lot of time practicing with paraprofessionals and other adults before they were able to implement it. The peers had to maintain a performance of 90% or better before they were allowed to work with the autistic children in which they were paired with. And the teachers and classroom staff, they gathered data to see how well this was working and how effective it was. And it was found that they did implement this discrete trial training with high levels of integrity. Another study was done with peers in which 5 of the 6 peers were asked to continue their work with discrete trial training, and they were asked to help these kids generalize the skills into other environments. And this study showed that with proper training and tutoring, these students were able to effectively and with fidelity and integrity help these kids generalize these skills. So it's very important that we look at finding a training that is effective, that is gives the time for these students to be effectively taught in a manner that is valid as well as effective. So, and efficient. Therefore, when you are trained in discrete trial training, it is important to make sure that the training program used is consistent across the board for each participant who is implementing this. It is important that we work with parents as well as students and other staff members at the school to make sure they are all on the same page. Parents can take this discrete trial training and use it at home with these kids also. It's not just a school-based thing. We can take the things learned in the classroom and we can move them on to home-based learning. So the problem with discrete trial training is making sure everybody is doing it properly and the same way. So I think that if we use a hands-on experience where they actually have the hands-on experience of working with students or stand-ins, whether it be other teachers, other paraprofessionals and such, to give them lots and lots of practice and to make sure that they have that coaching available. There are many different places that offer this. I know of one that is Easter Seals, and they will provide you coaching for discrete trial training through their programs. So no matter what the disability, each student deserves a chance to learn. And we have to, as educators, be willing to take a hard look at the effective methods that work to teach these students. I only looked at the one discrete trial training to see how effective it could be with the proper training and without the proper training. And I found that it was more effective when teachers were given the hands-on support, the constant coaching, the constant help from people that were trained to implement this properly. Therefore, I encourage you as an educational community to think long and hard before implementing a discrete trial training program in order to help your autistic students as well as other students with disabilities. Make sure you know what you are in for. Make sure you understand how consistency is the key to making it work. Consistency across the board. Everybody must implement it properly. I thank you for your time, and you guys have a great day.